today we'll be taking a look at integrating to third-party systems. What are third-party systems? These are systems that are built and maintained by a third party or an external person or company who provides services that we are interested in interacting with. So for this demo, we will be interacting with the email service provider, as we will be building a simple contact us application. Right. Two prerequisites that you need for this to continue. Firstly is NodeJS installed on your system. If you don't already have it installed, go to nodejs.org and install it. Secondly, we'll be integrating to an email service provider, and there are tons of service providers, just a few of them named in this, as you can see on my screen, mailchap.io, which we will be integrating to for this demo in particular. There's also Gmail, SendGrid, Courier, Mailgun, Outlook, and so many others that you can probably Google them later. Right, so let's get straight to business. Firstly, we will be setting up our system, our environment. We'll be starting with npm, installing the dependencies that we need to work with. So let's get right into it. Right. So open up your terminal and let's start with npm init-y. This is the -y is a simple hack that you want to accept default settings. If not, if you just run npm init, you would have to agree or disagree or put in your own input as to certain questions that you're asked, basically. So this is what was created. Package.json file that was created by our command, our npm command. And so as you can see, all right, let's go back to our README. So the next thing we'll be doing is installing some other dependencies. NodeMailer, which is what we use to actually send emails from our Node.js application. Express, I'm pretty sure quite a number of people might be familiar with Express already, so I will not bother to say anything about it. .env is a package that you use to set configs in your application, certain credentials or information that's globally reusable, or they are confidential, and so you don't want anyone who has access to your source code to actually see these credentials. So you put them in your .env file, which I have actually created, and I will be running you through it later in the course. Lastly is your Buddypresser. This is used to accept requests from the user, meaning if you want to send information, you want to make like a post request or a patch request, you need Buddypresser to be able to send user data to your application. So let's go ahead and install this. By the way, if you have Yarn as well, you can use Yarn, and that's just Yarn add and the packages that you're installing. Oh, I'm not supposed to put comma between them. Let me just adjust that here as well. So yeah, you can, as I did, you can install multiple packages at once instead of one by one, as that probably be slower for you. Then we'll also be installing Nodemon. Nodemon is used for restarting your server, meaning every time you make a change, it automatically restarts, as opposed to you having to go type node, maybe index.js, every time you make a change. And this is a development dependency. You do not need it when you actually go to, when you actually put your application out there for users to use, because I don't think you want to be changing things over and over and over again, as that would actually be harmful. So I'm just going to copy that in my terminal and install. The save dev, as you can see here, is an indication that it's the dev dependency. So we will be checking out our package.json and we'll be seeing all these things that we installed. So the last thing that we will be doing is updating our package.json with the relevant start commands that we need. So let's go over to it and see. So as you can see, the default data that was populated when we ran the npm init just had the name, version, description, main, up until here, and the packages that we just added are here, right? The dev dependency, as I said, which is Nodemon, and the other dependencies that we have. I will not be explaining so much about these packages. If you are very curious, you can just search them up on Google and you can read more about them. So I mentioned that we will be updating our start scripts. This means that if you want to run a simple command to start the application, or to start the application, we will be updating this with two commands. One, if you're starting it as, as like a live application, and one that you're starting as like a development application. Typically, we're supposed to already have our starting point, which is index.js. I will be creating the file immediately after I upload this, after I update our scripts here. So node index.js. We also will be including, let's just call it dev. So Nodemon index.js. Well, for the most part, I will be using dev because we're still building. We haven't gotten to the point of delivering to our end users. So I will be using this mainly. So let's go ahead and create our index.js so we can actually test this out. Right. And as I said, we will be using Express. So let's go ahead and just set up everything that we need, the basic things that we need to go ahead. So starting with the packages that I installed. Let's start with Buddypresser. By the way, I have some extensions that I'm using in specific. I do not remember, but the hints I'm getting are from the extensions that I have installed. Okay. making so many mistakes today. What's going on? Okay. Okay. Let me just write this there now. I want to talk about .env, getting started with it, but let's just start our application first, and I explain what it is that I want to explain. Okay, so this is a simple setup. Let's go ahead and start our application. Starting with the dev scripts that dev command. We would be doing npm run dev. That's how to start it. If you're using the start script, you can just put npm start, but since this is what we'll be running the Nodemon, we use npm run dev as the command. Okay. So as you can see, server listening output 4000. So that means we have our server running, and the next thing that I want to talk about is the .env. Right. So as I mentioned before, that env is .env is used when you have maybe like global variables that you most likely will be using in a lot of parts of your application, or things that are prone to change over time, or things that they're prone to change, so you don't want to give it a specific value, or because different environments have their different requirements. So now if you were to deploy this to Heroku, as you have defined 4000 here, Heroku will not accept that 4000. It would need something else. So the .env that you're going to use is going to make your app quite fluid, so to say. So to start off with that, we would .env.config is to say, okay, we want to use .env in our application, and starting with as I mentioned, the port 4000, we don't want to make it static, so we want to say perhaps I want to use another port, somebody else wants to use another port, or if you have an application that's already running on port 4000, there will be conflict, so you want to make it fluid. So const port, you want to save whatever value it is that we have into this variable. So process.env.port. This is how we reference variables in our .env file. So this for 4000. So that means that whatever value is here is either going to be what you set in your ports, your .env file, or 4000. So let's change this to port, and here as well. port. All right. So I have a file here called .env.example because I don't actually want to show you what is in my actual .env file. That would be compromising myself. So if you want to, as you can see, these are all the variables that we are going to be using. You can change this to your own email address, but these are all the variables that we'll be using in our application. So when as you're watching this demo, go ahead and create your own .env file and populate with this data. So the first thing is your port. So if you want to change this to 5,000, you can change it to 5,000 and actually restart your server. I think I have to stop it and restart it again because I changed. Okay. All right, so my terminal is not closing. It's not exiting. I'm not sure why that is. All right, let's just move forward. So if you do want to, you can change that. I'm just going to clear it because it's not very necessary for me. All right. Okay, so that's basically the setup for your ports. So in your application, anytime you want to reference something that's in your .env file, you just set it to process.env. Oh wow, so it has actually stopped now. Process.env dot the name of the variable that you have already included in your .env file. So other setups that we will be using for the Buddypresser. So use Buddypresser. So this is to actually tell our application that we want to use Buddypresser. It's not just about requiring it as we did in line 1, but actually telling the application that yes, we want to use this. And yes, setting it to Json by default. So you can see the line that's here. That's because I have Node version 14 installed. So from version 14, Buddypresser is already included in Express, so you do not have to do line 7s and 8. But for those who have a lower version, you would need to do that. But I'm just going to leave it in my app. I'm not going to remove it so that when it's being referenced, you know that perhaps this is what is missing in your own application. So that's the basic setup. I think this caters for everything in our step 1 in README. So this step 2 is to create a server. So I believe everyone should be familiar with that, but we are creating an Express server. So we will be making a post request because a contact us form requires somebody filling a form and we getting the response. So that is a post request that we are making. So app.post, and we want it to the endpoint it is that we're calling, or the URL should be the slash URL, meaning like when you have facebook.com, so facebook.com, this is basically an indication of facebook.com, right? So if you now want to say slash profile, here you would just be slash profile, and you move button. We just want, since this is just a simple application, we don't really need any complex naming convention or anything like that. So we'll need a request and response. Yeah. So here this is where we'll be using the application of Buddypresser, really. We contact us, what will we need in our application? So I mean, we've all seen contact us forms. The basic things that you need is the name of whoever is contacting you, probably their email address or phone number, but we would take email address or phone number if you would like, honestly, but let's go with email. If you want to include the subject of maybe you have a list of possible things that you want your customer to impute or suggest to them to impute whatsoever, and the actual message. So all of that is going to come into your request and will be received by the request.body. So if you go ahead, take a look at the Buddypresser official page, you should see the different applications. There's Buddy.Parser, there's request.body, there's query, there's params, request.query, and so many other things. So for all these, I believe that everyone should just go over to the official website for more information. So the variables that we will need from our user. So I'm destructuring these from the request so that we can use it directly. And right, let's do a try catch block, meaning try to do XYZ, and if it doesn't work, just record the error that you get. Right, let's console.log the error so that in your debugging you can see what's wrong with your application. There is something that that's important to note, is that when you're sending things on the back end, it's important for you to do validation. It's important for you to validate that your data is correct, your data is complete, and it follows the required syntax that you want. So for now, let's just do a very simple checker, right? So you want to check if you want to make sure that that your client or your customer submits all the data that's required. So just check if there is no name submitted and no email and no subject and no message. Just return a simple error. incomplete data, right? So let's test this out, right? Oh, yeah, you will also be needing Postman. If you don't already have Postman installed, then you should definitely get Postman installed on your system. All right, so we're in Postman now, and this is our URL that we'll be using. My port is port 4000. If you have another port that you're using, another number, then go ahead and edit this. We would also be making a post request, as I earlier mentioned. We're coming to body, and we're making a JSON request. So let's just send an empty request, and as you can see, we got a response incomplete data, which is the check that we made here. So that proves that, okay, we have something set up and it's working. So let's go ahead. That's the basic setup that we need for our server. We will definitely come back to edit this, but we need to set up some other things. Okay, set up a server, create post request, which we have already done and tested. So the next thing we need to do is set up Nodemailer. Right, so let me create a folder. Let me call it utils, and here let's create let's call it email sender. So this is where we will be setting up our Nodemailer. So as usual, we have to, import Nodemailer for us to be able to use it. We'd also be, let's create a function that we would use to actually handle the email sending part. This is where we're going to do the actual email sending bit of the code. So let's create a function that we can call in our app.post request. So we have to export this out for us to be able to import it in our index.js file. It's going to be an asynchronous function. Okay. So for Nodemailer, you can also go to, I said, the official Nodemailer site, and I think this is it. So yeah, as you can see, the instructions, install Nodemailer from npm, which we have done. So 3 other things that will be required or 2 other things that will be required by Nodemailer. Firstly is to create a transporter object. So as you can see, transporter is the object that is going to be able to send the mail. The transport is the configuration objects that you need. The email service provider that you would have signed up on would have indicated certain configs that you would need. So those configs do go back and check your email service provider. This is mine. This is mailtrap.io. So if you click on demo box, you will see the required config. There are 4 things that you need: your posts, your host, the user, and the password. I will not be clicking on demo inbox because you will see my credentials and I don't want that to happen. So go ahead and get those details, and you need to copy them in your .env file. As you recall, there are certain other variables that were in my.env.example. I will be going back, so don't worry if you get carried away by everything that I'm saying right now. So first thing that's required is to create a transporter and impute all your configurations. Then the second thing is for you to actually send the mail. So we will be referencing this this function. The data is whatever data it is that you want to send to whoever it is that you're sending to. In this case, you're actually the recipient and your client is the sender. So in your whoever is receiving it is your email address that you're going to put there, and the callback is for whatever other function it is or operation it is that you want to do. Perhaps you want to check if your email actually sent or if it didn't send, or whatever it is that you want to do, other operation that you would want to perform. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code and see how to do that. So the first thing that we saw was that we have to create a transporter object. Let me just actually copy it out from here. Okay, because the transporter is equal to, okay. So here we'll be putting our configs. If you did click on the NodeMailer, the demo inbox, you would see the basic structure for this object. So you can just copy it out from there and paste it here, or whatever other service provider that you may be using. So I mentioned that there are at least for NodeMailer, there are 4 things that you will need: your host, your port, and your actual credentials. So that's the user and the password and pass. All right. So if you have gotten to your NodeMailer, your configs from NodeMailer, then you should definitely fill these 4 variables, and you should fill them in this file.env, but I can't show you that because I can't show you my own details. But go ahead and fill them, and you can come back to here to use them. So process.env dot, let me just copy all of this out really so I can use them. Hosts, ports, password. All right, so that's creating the transporter. The next thing is our data. So we are going to node mailer takes four things. Your from, let's create an object. So all this data. So your from, meaning whoever is sending you a mail. The to, whoever is receiving the mail. In this case, it's actually going to be your email address that you should put there because you are the one that's going to receive the mail. The subject, meaning the subject of your mail, and the content. So I've created, if you see from our function here, I passed in an object called options. I didn't, put any specifics to it because, you might want to pass a lot more than we actually need, but I just put that here. So all this data should come from, you should pass it from wherever it is that you're actually going to call the function from, right? So your from is your sender, whoever is sending you the email, and let's go back to our index.js. So as I said, the name of the person, the email, the subject, and the message. So let's just copy all of these out. So you're from the name of the person, so option dot name, and the email of the person. So option dot email. 2 is you, and this is going to be in your .env file. As I said here, your email address, your email. The next thing is the subject. So the subject, the user might, just provide different things per different users. So for your own understanding, you'd want to make something that's quite understandable for you. So you can say maybe contact us form to indicate that yes, somebody's actually trying to get in touch with you, because if you just see something random, you might not know, perhaps the job opportunity or something, so you clearly don't want to miss out on that. So contact us form, and then the actual subject of the person, and finally the message. Message. All right, I can get rid of this data that you're actually passing. So the last bit is, as we saw here, is to actually send your mail. So let me copy this out. So let's replace data here with our own data, which is called email options. So you can, in our application, because we won't be needing a callback, because we're going to use this function somewhere else. Assuming we were going to do whatever other operation within this same function, we can just put, okay, maybe No, you can say if error, if there's an error. If there's an error, then console log your error. Okay, don't be passing. So the callback will take two things, the error and the response. So if there's an error, then console log your error, and if there's a response, you can also do what you want to do with the response. Perhaps you want to log the response, or perhaps you don't want to. You want to record it on a table or just note it somewhere else. You can do whatever you want to do, but we will not be doing this in particular. So let me just comment this out. And what we actually will be doing is awaiting this, meaning we're waiting for the response for this particular option, for this action rather. So you can save it in a variable and log the results if you want to. It's not going to affect what it is that we actually want to do in our application, but this is just for you, for your debugging. But I don't want to do that in my app, so I'm just going to clear that. So this is basically what we need. And yeah, we're good to go. Yeah. There's also something that I want us to do. If you are receiving a mail, you would receive it in in HTML format. Yeah, so all your data will need to be in HTML format. So let's create a simple page where we're going to have our data. It's a simple page, yeah, that we will receive whenever somebody sends us a mail. So it's going to be in a JS form, but in a JS file, but let's just start with HTML, just because I don't want to type out a lot and make mistakes. So let's do a simple, very, very simple HTML page. Nothing fancy, really. So let's see, somebody wants to contact you. So let's say get in touch with you. Now you can do anything you want. I mean, you can style it as you want, but that's not necessary. Just say name, email, subject, message. Right, so I think this is pretty simple. Right, so let's convert this back to a JS file. And let's move this to the details folder. Okay. So yes, we cannot use normal HTML in JavaScript. So what I'm going to do is save this in a variable. Let's just say const HTML is equal to yes. So the reason that we're actually doing this is because we are going to be sending in various, we're going to get various responses from various people, and so we just want to have a simple format where, when they send their emails, we're going to be receiving it in this particular template. Let's create a function that will actually, all the different names of different people, a function that will be able to handle getting the response and filling up these blanks. The name of the person should actually show the email subject, etc. So you might be wondering, why are we going through all of this stress? Like, can't we just have everything inside a simple, have everything in your index.js? But as you would realize going forward, the more complex your app becomes, the less feasible it is to actually have all your code inside the same place. It'll be harder to read. I mean, I can't imagine you scrolling through 100,000 lines of code just to be able to find a simple bug. That would be quite tedious. All right, so let's move this from here and put it into. We're also exporting this file, sorry, this function rather. What did I just do? Okay. We'll be exporting this as well. So what are we going to need? We're going to need the name, the email, the subject, and the message, so that all of that data comes beside these when we get it. So the name, email, subject, and message. So we're going to put that beside name, email, subject, and the message. Let's also return this variable. All right, so I think we're set up. We have our email sender. We also have the template it is that you want to receive the email as. So I believe we can go ahead and finish up. Right. Okay. Create email templates. Test email in Postman. So let's go back to let's go back to here to finish up, right? So as we remember that we exported these functions, so to be able to use them in index.js, we have to import them. So let's go ahead and import them. So const, what do we need? Send mail. So we need to go to the path that we have it, and we have it in our utils folder in our send email file. So that's where we should reference it. That's how we should import it rather. So for the second, the email template, we're also going to do the same thing in our utils folder in our email templates. So let's come here and do email messaging. And that's a an extension that I have. So just fill up the path and the function itself. The function that you have would be an option for you to just click on. Right, going back to our app.post, our endpoint. So you would want to send the mail now. I mean, we've gotten all the data that we need from the user. So we're going to use our send mail option. So we're going to, this is obviously an asynchronous function. So we're going to await send mail. And if you remember, going back here, we needed 4 things: the data that we need to send to the user. So we need the from, the to, the subject, and the HTML. So which is the message. So we're sending it out. The from, that's the name of the person. The to is oh right, sorry, I think I said actually said the wrong thing. Apologies for that. Where's the name? Oh, right, that's actually the sender. Right, so the name, the email, subject, and message. Even though this email isn't actually compulsory for you to send it because we are using what is in our env file, but oh yeah, we need it for the from, so send it. So the name and the email of the sender actually. So yeah, I'm correct. Now the message that's going to be sent to you, the receiver, right? So remember that I recreated a template, right? We created this template, meaning this is actually what we want to receive. However, we need all of these data, right? So we're going to call this function. We're going to call this function now, which we have already imported here, email e-message, which is also an asynchronous function. So we use await e-message, and we need what? We need the name, the email, the subject, and the actual message. So when you're sending this email, this is what's going to be this is how you're going to receive the email. The message will be the body, The subject, will be the subject. The sender name and email will be there, and this is to actually send the mail. Right, I hope I haven't confused everyone. Right. So this is all we need, really. Sending the mail to you, the receiver, and this is the email template that we're going to get the message as. This is what we're going to see. I'm going to show you what it looks like, so don't fret. You will see the output at the end of this demo. Right. Okay, so now that we've sent the mail, we want to let the users know that we've sent the mail. We're not actually getting like any data response from the mail that we're sending or anything. There's nothing that we really need to receive back and display to the users that, okay, this is the output from the email that you sent. So let's just return a message to the users saying email sent. Yep. Nothing extraordinary, right? Email sent. And in this catch block, this means if something goes wrong when you actually tried it, perhaps you put in wrong credentials and it didn't actually work, then the email won't be successful. So you would want to indicate here that, oh, email was not sent. All right. So I wouldn't suggest you actually send your error to your clients, which is why you just log the error. But in a production setting, you want to have a logger, because all these console.logs don't actually show up on your production environment. So let's go back to our README and see what the next step is. Right. Test the email sending in Postman and verify on your email service provider. So that means that we're pretty much done here. We've checked the name and the email if the user actually supplied the complete data. Send the email with all the necessary details. Give a response to the user as to whether or not it was successful. If it wasn't successful, send email not sent. Return this message to the user. So let's go ahead to Postman and try and simulate this. So let me copy out these. We need these. So the name, I like using John Doe. Let's see, John Doe. John Doe. .com. Subject, what should we use? Let's see. And no, you can put anything that you want really. And let's try this out. Ooh, email not sent. Oh, I don't have, I'm offline. So I need to get my internet up and let's just give it a few minutes. Okay, my internet is back. Let's try it. Email not sent. Oh, okay. Okay, so let's go to email sender line 7. I forgot to put process.env. Let's try it again. All right, email sent successfully. So let's go to mail trap and see. Right, this is what it's going to look like. This is the mail that we sent. Remember the subjects, right? The formats that we did. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, name, email, subject, and the message. And with mail trap, you can also see it from different sizes, the tab and the phone as well. So in case you want to make your templates mobile or responsive. All right. I believe that that's actually it from the backend point of view. Test the email in Postman, verify the results on MailChimp, which we just did. And the next thing we're going to be doing is the contact us form on the front end. So I already have, I built a simple form that just gets, the full name, email, subject, message, as we have designed on the backend system. So for this to show, we have to do something here. We have to use express as static. So express static is used to serve static, files or images in your application. So this is the simple format, or should we say, simple format. So let's just copy that out. Go to server and paste it. So we're going to make edits to this. First of all, we want it to be on the let's say the index points, which is like the base URL. Then we're also going to, this public is the name of a folder. We do not have a public folder. I created a folder called views, and we're going to be connecting to that folder instead. So the directory name that we have, this is, my own directory name, my root directory, plus the folder, which is views. And if I go back to this page and refresh it, let me remove this line so you see that it doesn't work without it. I cannot get anything, so you want to make sure that you do include this if you want to serve static files, from your server. Right, back onto the form. I listed out the action points that we're going to take. Firstly is to add an events listener, which is going to be based on this submit button right here. So if you submit your form, what should happen? That's the meaning of that. So let's go ahead and type that in this JavaScript section. So we're going to create a variable contact form, which we're going to save the form, this form that we have. I've named it contact. So we're going to do document.get elements by ID, and the ID is contact. Next, we're going to add the events listener on this form. Okay. Let me just move this here. Contact form dot add events listener, and I'm going to listen for any submit events. And we'll also take a function where we would be doing the actual data sending and receiving. The first thing that we actually want to do here is to prevent any default action from happening. This events.prevent default means, okay, I know you want to do something, but hold on, I have some things that I want to do, or just stop everything that you want to do. I want to take control. I want to define exactly what it is that I want to do. And so that's your first action in this function. The next thing is to get the data that you actually want to send. So starting with the name, and the name, the email, the subject, and the message. So we need to get the value of these inputs. So as usual, document or get elements by ID, and I've named them pretty simple, email, name, subject, message as well, just to get everything to make everything simple and easy to understand. So documents, get element by ID, and then value. This means actually get the value of the value in the input field, not just the field itself. So I'm just going to copy this for all the other items and update the ID. The next thing we're going to do is create an object where we're going to store all the data so that we can, make the request with just a single object. All right, that's about it for the form. The next thing we're going to move on to is the request object. The request object. This means this is where you actually want to try and make once with all the necessary information it is that you want to make the request concerning. For here we're going to put the URL, the endpoint it is that we want to make the request to, and that's this. Let's store it in a variable called URL. Okay, so URL, and other options it is that we're going to put, so things like the method, which is your post, put, patch, delete methods, the data that you actually want to send, and necessary headers it is that you have. So starting with the method, this is a post request, as we know. I mean, from here already implies that it's a post request. The data that you're sending will go in as a body. Remember, when you were doing Buddypresser, you collected data from something called request.body. So that's basically the same thing that you're doing here. We are going to stringify the data. And the last thing I'm going to do is add headers. So if you're not sure about all the headers that you need to add, you can always go to your Postman and check the headers tab for some of the things that you may require. For now, we're just going to specify the content type, which is application.json, but with some other applications, you might need more. You might need form data if you're dealing with images, or if the application requires that you have some sort of authentication, then you might have to put basic or bearer authentication, or whatever authentication is required by the third party that you are integrating to, or the API itself that you're integrating to. And the next thing is to actually make the call, and we're going to be using fetch. So fetch the request objectives that you have, and you get the response. So we have response. Let's run this in JSON. Then you're going to, what do you want to happen when you receive the data from the API? Do you want to display a message to the user? Do you want to use the message to do something else? What really is your aim? I just want to alert the user. So alert response.message. Okay. Let's also just log it in your, when you move to a production environment or deploy your application for users you really don't need to log it, but for the sake of testing, let's log it and see what we get. So yeah, let's go to our form and fill it. So, John Doe @gmail.com. Let me just copy this. If you want, you can type it out. I'd like to hire you. Okay, and let's send. Okay. Let's try that again. And this time, let's actually check our logs and see what happens. Okay, email sent. Right, that means it was successful. Right, so there you have it. We have successfully integrated to third-party service provider, mailchimp.io, for sending emails. We've created the contact us form, the front end. We've also built in the back end as well. Is there anything else? No, that's the last point. So thank you everyone for joining in. Hope you've learned a thing or two, and hope you practice what it is that we have done today. That's right. Thanks everyone. Have a good day. Bye.